Hey seniors, today we're going to move on from square roots and cube roots and start talking about rational numbers. But before we do that, we really need to spend a day on converting fractions to decimals and vice versa. This is a super easy, super important skill. If you can nail this skill, you're going to nail at least 3 questions on the benchmark. So let's go ahead and get started. On your notes page, go ahead and draw your line and write converting fractions to decimals, and this will be example 1. Go ahead and write 3/5 on your notes page. If I want to convert a fraction to a decimal, all I do is divide these numbers out. And you'll remember from math intervention, top in, bottom out. Top goes in, bottom goes out. Then all I do is just divide them out. 5 does not go into 3, so I go ahead and put a 0. I've run out of numbers, so I know I have a decimal I can bring up. 5 still doesn't go into 3, so I know I can add a 0. 5 does go into 30 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm left with 0. 3/5 written as a decimal is just 0.6. And that is literally it. If you can divide, you can do this skill. Let's do another one. Go ahead and write example 2 on your notes page and then 17/20. And I go through the same process. Top in, bottom out. Top goes in, bottom goes out. 20 does not go into 1, so I go ahead and put a 0. 20 does not go into 17, so I put another 0. I've run out of numbers, so I know I have a decimal I can bring up. 20 still doesn't go into 17, so I add a 0. 20 does go into 170 8 times. 8 times 20 is 160. I'm left with 10. 20 does not go into 10, so I have to bring down a 0. 20 does go into 100 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. I'm left with 0. 17/20 rewritten as a decimal is 0.85. My pen is your pen. And that's literally it. If you can divide out, you got it. All right, let's go the opposite way. Let's convert a decimal to a fraction. Go ahead and write 0.6 on your notes page, and then let's go to it. All right, if I want to convert 0.6 to a fraction, the most important thing I look at is place value. So I look at my decimal and I see that 6, which is the last number past the decimal, is in the 10th place. So 10 becomes my denominator. 6 is the only number past the decimal, so that becomes my numerator. 0.6 rewritten as a fraction is 6/10. My last step is just to simplify this out. And I know that when I simplify fractions, I divide top and bottom by the same number. Both of these numbers are divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 0.6 rewritten as a fraction is 3/5. Let's do another one. All right, 0.85. I look for my last number past the decimal, which is 5, and I see that 5 is in the hundredths place. So 100 becomes my denominator. And then I just take my numbers that are past the decimal, which is 85, and that becomes my numerator. 0.85 rewritten as a fraction is 85th 100ths. However, we do have to simplify this down. So again, I think, what numbers are both of these divisible by? Well, they're both divisible by 5. 85 divided by 5 is 17. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 0.85 rewritten as a simplified fraction is 17/20. All right, let's go on. All right, sometimes we're going to see mixed numbers or numbers that are larger than just a decimal. So when that happens, go ahead and write 2.6 on your notes page. When that happens, I do the same process and I just ignore the whole number that's to the left of the decimal. So in fact, if I want to rewrite 2.6 as a fraction, I go ahead and just pull 2 out, and then I just deal with 0.6. I see that 6 is in the 10th place, so 10 becomes my denominator, and then 6 becomes my numerator. My last step is just to simplify this down. I divide both top and bottom by 2, and I have left with 3/5. 2.6 written as a fraction becomes 2 3/5. My pen is your pen. But let's go ahead and change it back. Change it back to 2.6. All right. If I have 2 3/5, and I want to change it back to a decimal, I do the same thing. I ignore the whole number, and I just pull it out, and then I'm just left with the fraction to turn into a decimal. So I go through the same process, top in, bottom out. 5 does not go into 3, so I put a 0. I'm out of numbers, so I bring up a decimal, and I add a 0. 5 goes into 30, 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm left with 0. So then, all I do is add 0.6 to my decimal. And that's literally it. All right, that's it for me. Time for you guys to practice.